Hello and welcome to IAMC Radio and Podcast.
Great to be here.
Today we're going to explore the top news headlines for May 5th.
Yes, quite a few significant developments happening around the world.
Absolutely. We've got stories touching on policing in Nigeria, some international crime, politics in the US and UK, and economic debates too.
A real mix. So where should we start?
Let's begin in Nigeria with some police matters. What's happening there?
Okay, well, the Inspector General of Police has reaffirmed a ban that's been in place.
A ban on what exactly?
On officers posting photos of themselves in uniform on social media, and also sharing official police documents online.
Ah, right. That's social media policy.
Exactly. And the directive also included a warning against sort of demeaning tasks like carrying luggage or umbrellas for VIPs.
I see. Is there a specific reason this is being brought up again now?
It seems to stem from growing scrutiny over the police's image online. There have been videos,
Videos showing what?
Well, officers sometimes in compromising situations or doing things that look servile. Like that recent viral video of mobile police officers.
The one with the Chinese mining company.
That's the one. They were shown receiving cash. The police defended it, said it was just an appreciation, not a bribe or anything untoward.
But it clearly raised eyebrows. And this directive, it was recent.
Yes, an internal wireless message dated May 3rd, just a couple of days ago, sent to various units reiterating the policy.
Okay. And unfortunately, sticking with the police in Nigeria, there's another video causing concern.
Yes, a really disturbing one, actually. It shows uniformed officers assaulting a young man.
Oh dear. Where did this surface?
It was shared by an ex-user, Somto Okonkowo. The video itself just shows the personnel hitting the victim. It's quite graphic.
Has there been any official response?
Yes, the Police Complaint Response Unit, the MPF-CRU, they acknowledged it. They replied to the user asking for more details, location, victim information, sent via DM to help their investigation.
Using the hashtag no to impunity, I believe.
That's right. So they're looking into it, but currently the officers' identities and the exact location aren't known. It highlights that ongoing need for accountability.
Definitely. Okay, let's shift focus internationally now. There's a fraud case involving a Nigerian man in Canada.
Yes, in Toronto. A 28-year-old man, Chimezi Nombuez, has been arrested.
And the allegations.
He's accused of defrauding two victims out of a pretty substantial amount, over 610,000 Canadian dollars.
Wow. How did he allegedly do it?
It was apparently an online romance scam. He claimed he owned an oil rig in the Middle East, needed money urgently, promised to pay it back, even meet them.
Which never happened, I assume.
Correct. The meetings never occurred. The charges are quite extensive, uttering forged documents, laundering proceeds of crime, participating in a criminal organization, fraud over $5,000, possession of property obtained by crime. Several counts.
Serious charges indeed. Is he in custody?
He was released and has a court appearance coming up in Brampton, but the police believe he might be part of a larger network.
Targeting specific people.
Yes, they suspect that this network targets older adults, often through dating websites. And apparently, this isn't his first brush with the law for this kind of thing. He was arrested back in November 2023 using the same method.
A concerning pattern. Okay, moving over to the US and politics. Former President Trump and the Catholic Church.
That's right. He shared an AI-generated image of himself depicted as the Pope on his Truth Social platform.
As the Pope. How was that received?
Not well by the church, unsurprisingly. The New York State Catholic Conference publicly expressed their disapproval.
What did they say?
They put out a statement saying, and I'm quoting roughly here, "There is nothing clever or funny about this image, Mr. President. We just buried our beloved Pope Francis. Do not mock us."
Strong words. And Pope Francis did pass away recently, didn't he?
Yes. Pope Francis Jorge Mario Bergoglio died on April 21st, 2025. And the papal conclave to elect his successor is due to start very soon, May 7th.
So the timing was particularly sensitive for them?
Exactly. They felt it was disrespectful during a solemn period of transition for the church. It also, highlights the ongoing issues around AI-generated content and its potential impact.
Absolutely. Now, staying somewhat in the international political sphere, Europe seems to be making a play for U.S. scientists.
Yes, that's an interesting development. There was a conference in Paris hosted by French President Macron and the European Commission head, Ursula von der Leyen.
What was the goal?
It was called Choose Europe for Science. And the explicit aim was to lure U.S. scientists who might be feeling disgruntled or uncertain under President Trump's administration.
Offering incentives.
Financial incentives, yes. They're pointing to increasing political and financial pressure on U.S. universities and research facilities, potential funding cuts, program closures, even concerns about visas for foreign students.
So Europe sees an opportunity there.
It appears so. France, for example, has a specific funding program to help its universities bring in foreign scientists. Aix-Marseille University even has a Safe Place for Science scheme that's reportedly seeing a lot of interest.
Are other countries involved?
The French National Research Center, CNRS, also has an initiative, and the conference included non-EU members like Norway, Britain, and Switzerland.
What's the pitch beyond just funding?
Well, they acknowledge EU research funding might sometimes lag behind the US, but they argue the cost of education and healthcare is lower in Europe, and social benefits are more generous.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Are they targeting specific fields?
Yes. Key areas like health, climate, biodiversity, artificial intelligence, and space. The French government is apparently willing to finance up to 50% of selected projects, potentially with tax incentives too.
A significant effort. Okay, let's hop across the channel to the UK. The Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, is under pressure.
Yes, following some really poor local election results for the Conservatives, they lost over 600 councillors and all 15 councils they controlled going into the elections.
And Reform UK did well.
Reform UK made significant gains, yes, which has led to calls for Badenoch to resign. One former council leader whose area actually flipped to Reform urged her to step down.
How has she responded?
She's pushing back. She stated that changing leaders again won't be enough, referencing a previous leadership change that led to a historic defeat.
So she's digging in.
Seems like it. She's framing her leadership as a 6 months into a 5-year project focused on steadying the ship. She acknowledged it was a bad night for the Tories and a good one for Reform, and even admitted there's a protest in the air.
Did she comment on the possibility of things getting worse?
She did. She said she expects things will get worse before they get better. Interestingly, when asked about Nigel Farage potentially becoming prime minister, she said anything is feasible.
Really? That's quite an admission.
Though she quickly added she's determined to prevent it because she believes he doesn't have the answers for the country. Still, it shows the level of political flux.
Indeed. Okay, let's return to Nigeria for a moment. A protest involving GT Bank.
Yes, this happened in Abuja. Protesters gathered outside a GT Bank branch after the EFCC arrested a well-known social media influencer, Very Dark Man.
Very Dark Man, Martins Vincent Otse. Why were they protesting at the bank?
They believe the bank collaborated with the EFCC in his arrest. He was apprehended shortly after visiting that specific branch.
Are there details about this alleged collaboration?
Well, an activist lawyer, Deji Adeyanju, claims VDM was actually trapped inside the bank's exit door for several minutes, which allowed the EFCC time to arrive and arrest him. He called it an inhumane setup and is threatening legal action against the bank.
That's a serious allegation. Is VDM still in custody?
Adeyanju's legal team confirmed he was in EFCC custody, and they were working on securing his release. The exact charges against him weren't immediately clear.
And Very Dark Man is known for being quite outspoken, right?
Very much so. He's quite controversial, often comments boldly on Nigerian politics, corruption, and targets high-profile figures. So his arrest immediately raised concerns about, potentially weaponizing anti-graft agencies to silence critics.
And there's been backlash online.
Yes, significant backlash against both the EFCC and GT Bank, with accusations that they're targeting dissent.
Another story causing debate in Nigeria involves the African Development Bank president, Akinwumi Adesina, and the presidency.
Yes, Adesina made comments suggesting Nigerians were actually better off economically back in the 1960s compared to now.
On what basis?
He cited GDP per capita figures, claiming they dropped significantly from around $847 in 1960 to $824 in 2024, indicating rising poverty.
How did the Tinubu presidency respond?
They strongly rejected his claim. The president's spokesperson, Bayo Onanuga, issued a rebuttal, basically accusing Adesina of speaking like a politician and not doing proper research.
Did they dispute the figures?
They did. The presidency presented different numbers, stating Nigeria's GDP in 1960 was much lower, about $4.2 billion, with a population of 44.9 million, giving a per capita income of only $93.
A huge difference.
A massive difference. They traced GDP growth, noting the oil boom in the 70s, and pointed out that GDP per capita actually peaked much later, around $3,200 in 2014 after the economy was rebased.
So beyond just the numbers, what was the presidency's main argument?
Their core argument is that GDP per capita isn't the sole or even the best measure of well-being. It doesn't account for wealth distribution, the huge informal economy, or, crucially, improvements in things like healthcare, education, and especially telecommunications.
They mentioned specific examples.
Yes, the massive increase in schools, roads, medical facilities compared to 1960, and the telecom revolution. Think about how few landlines there were in 1960, maybe around 18,000 for 45 million people, versus the mobile phone access everyone has today. That progress isn't always perfectly captured in older GDP figures.
So they argue Nigeria is significantly better off overall, even if the per capita calculation is debated.
Exactly. They asserted the GDP is now at least 50 to 100 times larger than it was at independence. It's a fundamental disagreement on how to measure progress over decades.
Okay, back to the U.S. President Trump has announced a significant trade measure affecting the film industry.
Yes, quite a dramatic one. He announced on Truth Social his intention to impose a 100% tariff on all foreign-made movies entering the U.S. market.
100%.
Why? He claims the movie industry in America is dying a very fast death. He argues other countries use incentives to lure filmmakers away, calls it a concerted effort, and even a national security threat. He also labeled foreign films as messaging and propaganda.
Strong language again. Has this taken effect?
He stated he's authorized the Department of Commerce and the U.S. Trade Representative's Office to start instituting the tariff immediately.
With the goal being?
In his words, "We want movies made in America again."
What could the impact be? U.S. films still dominate the U.S. box office, don't they?
They do, but this tariff would heavily penalize any film produced outside the U.S., even potentially films made by American companies that choose to film overseas for various reasons. It could significantly disrupt the global film production and distribution landscape.
A major potential shift.
Yeah.
Finally, a rather tragic story emerging from Nigeria concerning a traditional ruler.
Yes, this is a very sad and disturbing report about the death of His Royal Highness Chief Lukman Ojora Orunfal.
Who was he?
He was a U.S.-based Yoruba monarch, the Baba Oba of Oyotunji African Village in South Carolina. His death allegedly followed an assault that occurred inside the palace of the Alafin of Oyo.
An assault. What's the background here?
It's reportedly linked to an ongoing supremacy row between the Alafin of Oyo and the Uni of Ife, two very prominent traditional rulers.
And what allegedly happened to Chief Aronfele?
Chief Aronfele was an American citizen. He, his wife, and driver were allegedly attacked after a meeting at the Alafin's palace back on April 17th. There's actually a posthumous audio recording from the chief.
What does the recording say?
He recounts being lured to the palace, asked to remove his traditional beads, questioned about his title, which was bestowed by the Uni, and then allegedly assaulted by the Alafin's guards.
Was there any provocation alleged?
According to the chief's account, his driver was apparently recording the conversation, which led to further beating and their phones being confiscated. His wife has also confirmed the assault took place.
What happened after the alleged assault?
The chief claimed the Alafin ordered their arrest, but the local area commander advised them to simply apologize instead. Sadly, Chief Arunfal passed away subsequently.
Has the Alafin's palace responded to these very serious allegations?
Yes, they have issued a strong denial. They called the allegations baseless, a fabrication, and linked them to what they termed a wicked and misleading video. The Alafin spokesperson insists Chief Arunfal was well received and there was no altercation whatsoever.
So completely conflicting accounts.
Yeah.
A very serious situation unfolding there.
Absolutely. These headlines really do paint a picture of a world grappling with some very complex issues right now. Justice, politics, economics, tradition, technology, it's all intertwined.
It certainly is. Each story gives you, the listener, a different lens through which to view the challenges and changes happening globally.
A lot to keep track of.
Thank you for listening to today's top news headlines on IAMC Radio and Podcast.